What I want to say, first of all, is this topic is in a phase of experimentation rather than in implementation, because things are changing very fastly. Since I left Montevideo until now, there were new developments that didn't have the time to put into PowerPoint format. The most important change in the last few weeks, the last few days really, was the launch of GPT-01. GPT-01 apparently is a big improvement in, between quotes, thinking. In technical terms, what it does is it forces the large language models to process in steps, in different steps, instead of only one continuous process. And the responses apparently are much better. So what I want to tell you today is you should be very careful between committing large budgets in AI, at least at the college level. I guess at the pre-college level is the same story, because the whole technology is in flux. We are in a state of experimentation. What we have done in the last few months is we started an innovation fund for teachers, for university lecturers, for them to come with ideas on how to enrich their topics, their subjects, with the use of AI. And for textual uses, fixed image and moving image, not for music at the moment. So what we did is we called for applications. We selected out of about 100 applications in our university, 20. And to each lecturer, we assigned a small budget, small fund, for them to develop an idea of how to use AI in their subject in the semester going from September to December 2024. This is happening right now. So I can tell you next year what happened with this idea. We think that's the proper way to go. I think we have to spread the innovation impulse between many people and many subjects to see what kind of flower really grows. And we hired a central research coordinator, which will be conducting formal research on the 20 projects to make sure whatever is happening is done in a proper way, and it can be expanded and amplified and extended to other lecturers. So if I may, I'll speak quickly about all these subjects there. Probably the first one will not be useful for most of you, but still I will be very quick. So as you know, generative AI is only a branch, a sub-branch of artificial intelligence, but it's the branch that is in fashion at this time. Technically, I am of the opinion that this is a closed road, that it won't go very far. Some people think, and I think as part of them, that generative AI is not a technology that will bring us into general artificial intelligence. I think this will be like expert systems in the 80s or 90s that found a wall, went into a wall and couldn't progress any further. And I explain a little later in non-technical terms why I think so. But at the moment, it's the hot thing, and it's useful in some contexts. Well, you know, the number 2 item, the usual ones, GPT-4, Palm, Llama, and you have to be careful because large language models are not immune to hallucinations. So many times you are happy to ask something or request something from a large language model, and what you get is garbage. The problem is garbage that doesn't look like garbage. It's garbage that looks like a proper answer. So this is the reason it is dangerous. Okay, so a little bit of history, just to show how not modern is a generative AI. The first machine learning is from the 50s. Somebody called Arthur Samuel was busy with this. The first neural network was developed in 57, so about 50 years ago, half a century ago. ELISA was the first breakthrough in the first bot in history. So the questions are, what's happening with this now? Have we reached nirvana? Are we going to be all happy with this? Some people are afraid that we have reached some sort of Armageddon. Will this be a real revolution in education? Because in the last few years, we suddenly found ourselves trying to be innovative and find a response, an answer, an attitude towards blockchains, for example. 4 years ago, it appeared that blockchains were the hot topic and that everybody needed to have a blockchain strategy. Then the pandemic came and we had to find a way to use some sort of remote technology. We adopted in Uruguay something called HiFlex. It's a hybrid technology we use to teach. Is similar to Zoom, but it's different because it allows for students being present and remote at the same time, and the lecturer is teaching like I'm doing now, up and writing in the blackboard and everything. It's not like a small face in the screen. But then we have blockchain, then we had Zoom, then we had data analytics. It seems like every couple of years we have some sort of revolution. So AI is the real revolution? We don't know. Maybe it will be absorbed into our systems like the other ones, or discarded, maybe. I don't know. We don't know. The need to lead. So people in this room, like me, we have to take decisions. So what should we do? So the important thing, I repeat, is that generative AI is in flux. It's changing every day. So at the time, my recommendation would be experiment, try to open the floor, have many people try different subjects. I don't think we are even close to stable conclusions. We have now free of charge models. We have models you have to pay. It's not really clear why you pay when you pay. The names are incomprehensible. The way they call them. In my view, the future of AI will evolve into being embedded into other programs, like the co-pilots. You will have Word, Excel, and AI will be all over around. I don't think it will be a different kind of system. However, we have to take in mind at the moment, and this is part of the problem, at the moment, the larger is the better. There is a problem of scale. The first generation of AI, like GPT 3.5, was about $10 million to train the machine learning system. Now, it was not connected to the internet. It was not very smart in comparison to our current day standards. So that was generation 1. Generation 2 is GPT-4, the one we have access now. There is a free of charge version. There is a payable version. It's connected to the internet. It competes with Claude Sonnet 3.5. It competes with Gemini 1.5. And it was $100 million. So the first generation was $10 million to train. The second generation is $100 million. But now they are all trying to go into the third generation. So GPT-5 is announced for next year, and it has budgeted $1 billion to train. So this is becoming a very kind of highly aristocratic company system, because not everybody has $1 billion to spend, not to speak of the computing power. So there is a limit on the computing power you now have in the planet, let's say, to train this kind of huge systems. So here is why I'm skeptical. I believe large language models are based on statistical approximations. They are, those of you who like mathematics, they are like Markov chains in a more complex definition, more complex formulation. But it's basically based on words. It's not based on math. So it can't really scale to the level of the human mind. They won't ever scale. If you are interested in this kind of thinking, I would invite you to read Yann LeCun, for example. He's probably the smartest scientist in AI now working in the United States. There is also a problem of the scarcity of content, because when you train a large language model, you need a lot of content. So until now, there was the generation 2 had the whole internet to digest. And basically, they didn't pay copyright to anybody. So it was cheap in that sense. Now, the quantity of content is starting to run out, because the internet has been run north, east, side. So they are using everything. And they have to pay, because now everybody, the main sources of content, like the New York Times, for example, they have sued these large language model producers and said, if you are using our content, you have to pay. So there are attribution problems here. Then there is the cost of training. And after I finished this slide a week ago, we have this new model that after training has thinking. So you have a problem of scale in training. This is very expensive and difficult. And you have a problem of scale in what they call refining or thinking, the second phase. Apparently, the results are much better. I wasn't able to try it in depth yet, because I was in the plane when it was announced. But apparently, it's quite impressive. But I think large language models will plateau. They will achieve a certain level, and I'm not sure they will go much further than that in terms of intelligent actions. So I think in many people, there are confusions in terms of what are these models useful for. The problem is many people try to use this as Google, to ask them things, and they are not good at that. Google is better than large language models for asking for answers. So in general, you would say you have to think of what do you want to do with large language models. In general, I would say it's a thought assistant. It can help you conceive. It cannot give you new ideas on its own. It can't. I don't think you should have hopes of this technology to give you original ideas, original concepts, out-of-the-box approaches to problems. But they can be a good assistant. Until now, it has been measured, it's like an average PhD assistant researcher. Now they say with the O1, the new model, is a competent young PhD researcher level in terms of computing math, statistics, physics, this sort of thing. So how to use this? This is part of the course we give to teachers. We are giving a lot of seminars to our lecturers on this. This is part of this. So ask for ideas, not for answers. Try to maintain open-ended conversations. You have to guide large language models. You have to try to focus them, give them context. The more context you give a large language model, the better response you will have. Generic conversation will give you nothing of interest, only bland wording. If you give it enough information, it helps create specific responses. So if you put all your lesson notes, for example, it will give the teacher something more useful. If you give the lesson notes of all the teachers of the department, it will be even better. If you give the lesson plans of the whole Ministry of Education of the country, it will be even better. So you have to feed large language models with a lot of context if you want some specific answers of any value. In any case, going back to what I was saying before, it's not easy to use at local level, like schools or universities, because the larger is the better. A very good example I like to because of its explanatory power, is Bloomberg. Bloomberg is a huge company with a lot of resources, and they wanted their own large language model. They built, with all their financial data, is high quality data, more than 50 years of financial data, very well curated. They put it all this data in a language model for it to be specific for answering data on the stock market for their analysts. And when they finish all this with a huge expense and they compare it to the answers of GPT-4 standard normal, the GPT-4 standard was better without spending no $1. So at least until now, the larger is better. You cannot compete with the behemoth. So you have to give it context. You have to force it to reason, so to speak, in steps. For example, you have to tell the large language model to adopt a certain profile. If you ask if Lionel Messi was playing basketball, would he be a very big star as well? Well, Google could never answer a question like this. It wouldn't find any meaning into it. But a large language model would be, if you give context on who Lionel Messi is, or what basketball is, or what football is. So you have to make the model explain and defend its ideas. You have to challenge it all the time, so you will get better answers. We did a lot of experiments, and we could see that when teachers use AI only for output, produce a lesson plan, produce a chronogram, or produce a drawing or a map, it was okay, but it wasn't a big step forward. But if the teacher uses it also for input, let's say, have a conversation with the model on writers or filmmakers or dramaturgists, things like that, the results were much better. The improvement in the teaching that you could see in the lesson plans, in the implementation of the lesson plans, could be really tangible. So we had a big discussions during the summer, December, January, February, on what we should do with the technology. Because at the time there was panic. For example, Haute Étude Commerciale in France decided to ban large language models. In Canada, many universities decided to ban large language models because of cheating problems. So in our case, we decided that it would be allowed, completely allowed, no ban. On the contrary, we are going to promote and stimulate the use of these instruments or programs. But we told students that any use of AI systems should be attributed following the guidelines of copyright. If they don't acknowledge the use of AI, they will be disciplinarily punished, like copying the book of another author. So assessment design must take validity threats into account. So this is the difficult step. We have around 1,000 courses every semester, 1,000 different courses happening every semester. Half of these courses, about 500, are assessed through essays. Essays are easy prey for large language models, because if you ask, give me the causes of the French Revolution, for example, and compare to the American Revolution, this is very easy prey for a large language model. The student doesn't have to make any effort. And it's very difficult to tell if it was done automatically or not. So at the moment, we are focused on helping teachers redesign their assessments. But you don't have to throw the baby with the water. Essays are important ways of learning and assessment. So you don't stop doing essays. I think there is a lot of nonsense going around in the academic world of people saying we'll stop doing essays, we are going to oral exams for everybody. I think that's nonsense. So the real question is how you redesign your assessments to keep the value of essays, but addressing the validity threats. Validity means making sure that the student shows that he or she has learned properly. So at the end of the day, the goal is this one. I'm not moving too much because I think the camera is here and our Argentinian friends will lose me. It's not that they will lose very much, but they will still lose me. So at the end of the day, the last bullet is the most important. You have to design assessment in a way the students are so complex and so challenging that students must use AI to solve them. So, but it's easy to say, it's not very easy to really do it. So our main effort now is to try to teach lecturers or to help them reflect, to help them redesign within their departments, how to redesign their assessments to make them sufficiently challenging that they should expect students to use AI. Because this is good, because this is the future. So I don't know if it will be generative AI or some other kind of AI, but when they go to work, they will find this. I think this is the real challenge for universities or for any other kind of education institution, is to help teachers reconceptualize their assessment frameworks to make sure AI is used in a proper way, in a productive way, and it's not a substitute for cognitive effort. It is not. It must not be a substitute for the personal cognitive effort of the student. So what is the problem with student misuse of AI? Well, it is a threat to assessment validity. If the essay was done automatically, it doesn't show that the student has done anything. In education, the definition of productivity is different than in a company, for example. The effort, if you can build a car or code a program with half the effort, you have to celebrate. But in a university, it's different. If the student does the work with half the effort, that's not the point. The point is the effort. The cognitive effort is the point, because learning, at the end of the day, philosophically speaking, learning is changing your structure, the structures of your mind. You have to change, and change means effort. So if you skip the mental effort, if you skip the cognitive effort, you are not learning, really. So the problem is when the students hand over an essay that was written automatically, not only there is a threat to validity, that when they go to work, they will not be properly trained, but also they will suffer more and more from illusory knowledge. They will think they know, but they don't know, because they will have, in the last 500 years, we have tended to substitute grades for knowledge. So if you have a good grade, you know a lot, but this is not true. You know a lot if you have learned a lot. Now, if your grades are good because somebody has rated you by something that was done automatically or copied or plagiarized, so it's illusory knowledge. So imagine a medical school with people graduating with illusory knowledge. You don't want to be operated by nobody coming from such a medical school. So in general, the experiments, the few experiments that have been done, the few papers that have been published in the last couple of years, maybe a year and a half, maybe even less, show that when students receive access to GPT or other model, but GPT is basically the standard in education, in general, they will do better in essay assessment, but they'll do worse in oral assessment, meaning they haven't learned. But if they receive a prompted ChatGPT, that means a GPT that has been designed especially for students, restricted in some ways, or done with a specific purpose, then the difference is much less. So they will do better in essays and they will do better in orals as well. But you should give to the students what is called a tailored or prompted GPT, not the open GPT that you can use in your phone today. A prompted GPT means a GPT that has been previously treated, constructed by teachers for the students to use it in a certain way. Yes, it has a library of a catalog of prompts that is there, and the students cannot stray out of this. But it's a lot of work. But it works. It works better than give an open GPT. The teacher has to change conceptions, but it's not for the teacher to prepare a prompted GPT. It's a lot of work. It has to be done by a technical team of the school, at least. Okay, so what are we telling our teachers? This is part of our seminars. I'm using the PowerPoints that we are using in our real seminars. And again, this is all in work in progress. I'm telling you the state right now. When I left in the plane, Montevideo, now it's already a bit outdated, as I was saying. But at the moment, the last courses that were in August 2024, that was the focus. Telling teachers, first of all, to discard any hope of having an AI detector. They don't work. They don't work. So forget about it. Second, to try to change your frame of mind. Instead of thinking of cheating and punishing, to think on validity. It gives you a better moral floor. You're not looking for punishing students. You are striving for making sure the validity of their knowledge. It puts you in a better position. And, well, redesign assessments, as I was saying, I repeat. So how to redesign assessments? As I was saying, we have to move from a focus on detecting cheating to detecting learning has occurred. There is a nuance there. You could say, well, Jorge is selling mirrors, like we say in Spanish, but I'm not selling mirrors. If you read it 2 or 3 times, there is a difference, because it's not the same trying to detect cheating than trying to validate as learning. It's different, and there are different ways of dealing with this. One of the most important is the second bullet. Assess processes rather than the artifacts. Because for the last 200 years, 300 years, the whole tradition of education was to assess whatever the student was handing out. So this is the drawing, this is the party music piece, this is the math, the differential equation, this is the essay. So teachers have been always historically assessing artifacts, products, finished products. This is not possible anymore in the age of AI. You have to assess processes. You have to learn your student. You have to know your student, and you have to reach a conclusion on whether the product he's handing out fits your expectation of the potential of the student. You have to see the student working, and there are different ways to do this. You have to follow, and in a certain way, it's going back to the Middle Ages, to the artisan model. You have to look at the student. You have to make sure, you have to watch him work, to see interim processes. So you go away from products and you concentrate on processes. It's more demanding for the teachers. Yes, thank you. It's more demanding, it's time consuming. So sometimes discussions about payment arise, sometimes discussions about scale arise. You cannot have a 45 student group, for example. You cannot do it. You cannot follow processes for such a large group. This affects the economics. How can you follow processes? Well, it's formative assessment, reflection activities, portfolios, nested tasks, oral participations, seminar discussions, all very nice activities, very difficult to scale. Very difficult to scale. So other tips we give our lecturers: ask students to provide samples of the prompt. So if you say, please use the AI models, okay, but give me the prompts. This is controversial, I must say. Even within our university, some people are against this because they say, if you bring the prompts to the teacher, it's more work for the teachers to assess the prompts. And at the end of the day, it's not workable. Because if you make a model think in steps, you may have 20, 30 prompts per page, for example, or per task. So it scales very rapidly. So theoretically, you should ask samples of the prompts, but it can easily go stray. It can easily become very difficult for the teacher to follow this. Not to speak that the teacher has to learn how to use prompts properly. Prompt engineering is not something that comes so easily. It's like learning Hebrew. I mean, you have to put some effort into this. It's another language. So what we recommend our teachers: contextualize your essays. Don't make them general about the French Revolution or the Ming dynasty. You have to connect to local issues, for example, that usually are not already digested into the model, and you have to involve some field work. So go and speak to lawmakers and do interviews and this sort of activities that cannot be automatized. You also have to include, and again, this is very difficult to scale, some high security components like oral presentations, invigilated written examinations. I have to tell this, but it's not easy to implement because it's also more work for teachers. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to scale. So if you apply all what I am recommending, your groups cannot be more than 20, 24. And the economics of grouping, the economics of education start to change very rapidly. You know that the number of students per group is one of the most important metrics for the finance of an education institution. Okay, and to finalize, and I'm shifting now from a managerial point of view, I'm shifting gears into a more philosophical discussion. I shift gears, I go now into academic mode, more philosophical mode. I am personally worried about machines that produce text or drawings or music automatically, especially text, because actually writing and thinking are intimately connected. You cannot write if you don't think. And your thinking is refined by your writing. So if your writing is automatized, your thinking, your capacity to think, may deteriorate over the long term. And this is not the first time that technology has always done this. For example, when calculators were introduced, our ability to do mental arithmetics has diminished. I cannot do it very well now. I used to do it 25 years ago. Now I take a calculator just to change between levs and euros. And when robots were introduced, the manual, the physical force of people was diminished. Now, the richest guy is not the one who can pull more weight. He's the guy who can do more cognitive work. So every technology has put some human skill into second rank, like force, like the ability to calculate mentally, like the ability to read a map. Whoever has gone camping, for example, if you went to a mahane, you had to read a map. Now you don't read maps because you have cartographic systems. So every technology has put some human skill to rest. So if automatic writers like large language models put your thinking to rest, I'm worried about this. I'm worried this is a threat, an epistemological threat. So if our ability to think is weakened, what will happen to our originality? Because machines will not produce original ideas, will not produce new ways, new music, new poetry. If we need cold fusion, it won't come because of machine learning. Machine learning repeats in a better way what happened before. So if our ability as humans to think is deteriorates, who is going to do the original thinking? I'm worried about this. So my worry is that if writing is no longer necessary, the risk is the overall quality of thought will decline. There will still be very good writers, but they will become an aristocracy. A few people who can think, like we have a few people who can pull weights, for example. But it will become probably not a 1%er. It will be a 0.0001%er who can really think originally. So ultimately, the danger is not that machines will become more sophisticated, but that humans might become less intelligent. So final thoughts, only to leave you as food for thought. I'm always surprised. Nobody speaks about artificial learning. People talk about artificial intelligence. I don't know why. Someday I will write a paper on this. Education is different for other human endeavors because it's about inner change. What happens inside you. At the end of the day, will artificial intelligence help human inner change or tend to atrophy our thinking?